Okay, welcome back then, FJP fam. My name is Tim Davies. I'm back again, as you know, in my attack shack then. Dropping some truth bombs on your personal battlefields, helping you to win the wars you're fighting. That's what I do. Okay, bringing the love here. Right, let's whack up some things like my name. Guys, we've got to talk about the show rules real quick. We're running for about an hour. We've got a great guest. Enough information on tonight's show. I think you're really going to like it, okay? It's awesome. It's an awesome guy. More so because, boom. No, not that one, Davies, you idiot. Boom. Ah, that one there, okay? He's an X-12 Squadron warrior out in the world doing some great things. If you want to support the show, guys, and you want to ask Simon a question, he's a very interesting guy, but we're going to be very busy in enough chat, okay? It's going to be like this. Okay, so if you want to ask a question, then whack it in the super chat or buy a sticker and support the channel, that kind of stuff. That'd be really useful for me. It helps me do more of these, guys. Obviously, it is Warrior Wednesday, but we are on a Thursday because I had to go up and do something yesterday and I couldn't make it. One of those things. All right, but if you don't want to support the show, it's YouTube, isn't it? Everyone's poor, losing their jobs. And just ask your question in capitals, as you can see here, capitals. And then I'll scroll an eyes, that is a word, by the way, through the comments at the end, and I'll try and pick out some really pertinent questions so we can get Simon's superb knowledge. And if you want to also get in a Patreon, buy me a cup of tea for $5, or you can join the basic or the warrior, apologies, basic or advanced warrior crew. And we do some webinars, personal webinars in there. And if you're in the advanced as well, you get time with me every single month, okay? I'll give you some time to help you out, whatever you are trying to do. So without further ado, then let me bring in the man himself from DCS, Igor Dynamics, Business Development Director, then Simon Pearson. Round of applause.
Hey,
Simon, how are you? It's good to see you.
Yeah, good, thanks. You?
Yeah, not too bad, actually. You are a 12 Squadron warrior from back in the days when the Air Force was real Air Force. Back in, where did you serve? Were you in Marham or Lossie? You in Germany, weren't you?
Yeah, no, 12 Squadron Lossie. Yeah, not Marham. No, never did. Never really served in England. Only ever served at Scotland and Germany.
Well, it's a Typhoon Squadron now, isn't it? 12.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes. I joined the Air Force actually back in the day when it was in transition from what you could call an Empire Air Force. And there were all these blokes who were in their kind of mid-20s. I was like 18, 19 when I joined. The blokes in these mid-20s who were about 160 in my eyes. And they'd been on Canberras and Vulcans, and they were really old and crusty and hairy. So then we had the Cold War, proper Cold War, up to 89. And then, of course, modern Air Force came after that, which you've been dealing with admirably, I might add.
Yes, I've been dealing with the modern Air Force on fast jet performance, and sometimes they don't like that very much. yeah, we were talking the beard and hair policy and pronouns and all sorts of stuff. You know what I mean? It's a changing world. And in fact, I had a young chap last night talk to me about he was a D&I guy, a very young man, and I kind of tried to set him straight a little bit because he was saying that he supported BLM movement and all that kind of stuff. We don't need that in the Air Force, do we? So I just, we had a good old chat, actually. He's a good guy. But look, we were talking a little about Typhoon because obviously the Typhoon's coming into DCS. You are the Business Development Director for Eagle Dynamics. But DCS is your big product. When I came out of the Air Force, I didn't touch DCS for 2 years, and I started doing it. And I think we spoke at some point because I put a video on FJP, and I said to you, I don't like this very much. And then you said to me something very interesting. You said, hey, I use this as a bit of therapy. And I thought, well, what are you talking about? And so I started looking at it like that. And I'll tell you what, it's been really good mental health wise for me to sit down with your system, your whole DCS thing with a headset and run through checks. And it's the weirdest thing. I don't really understand it. Can you explain a little bit about then what DCS actually is for the viewers?
Yeah, I mean, DCS is hard. And I think that the key to DCS is a phrase that you used, which was you've got to do the work. I mean, just like real jets, you've really got to put some time in. I mean, I grew up in the 80s with Apache, AH-64 it was called, on a Commodore 128, and then moved on to Flight of the Intruder, and then Falcon 2345, and and then fell out of love with flights. Actually, then Lock-On, which was of course the precursor to DCS. I was flying that up to about 2005-06, and then I stopped. I stopped flying, and about 3 years ago, I was with the owner of DCS, Nick, who I've worked with in other projects for many years. And he said, have a look at this we've developed. Because I always said to him, my favorite, he said, what was your favorite computer games? Because he was looking at developing stuff because he had a whole bunch of super clever programmers. And I said to him, well, I said, I really liked Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe. I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember that, but it's a fantastic game. I think it's Microprose. And you could get in a B-17, you could hop between all the gunner stations and shoot at incoming Focke-Wulfs. Or you can get in an ME-163 Comet and you could whiz up and crash in and fire off the 30mm cannon and then glide down. And I said, why don't you reproduce that? I would buy it. If I would buy it, I know there'd be at least a couple of hundred people who would buy it. So if you spend millions developing it, then you could probably make £100 back. So he said, that's a great idea. So anyway, 3 years ago, he said to me, here, try this. And I put the hat on. And I have a confession. I have never flown DCS on the screen, with track IR or anything other than making videos, where either the head shakes or when you're talking and these muscles are working, and you can see the screen going up and down as you're talking. So in VR, I know you've seen that problem as well. So I've only ever flown in VR. So I put the hat on and I was in the Mustang and I thought, wow, it's amazing, and broke into a cold sweat because it was just like flying again. Got into the SU-25 and thought, wow, this is stunning. And I think I was speaking to one of the guys, Stalker, who's got 800 hours Apache, 600 hours Cobra, and about 300 hours UH-1, and he was saying, well, once you put the hat on, there's no going back. Once you put the VR hat on, it's so difficult to transform back. So I put the hat on, and since then, what's really weird, if I may just ramble on for a bit, talking about therapy, is I used to have stress dreams, and a lot of ex-Air Force guys will know these, where you're dreaming away and suddenly you haven't been in a jet for a decade and you're leading a 4-ship and you've forgotten how to start it up, and you've forgotten how, and there's all kinds of things, and you wake up in a cold sweat. Or you're going on operation and you can't remember the switches for the the cameras or the pod. So, and then when I put the VR hat on, I started flying DCS and I started learning, being, doing what you pilots do, just obviously because I can't have a backseater unless I'm flying the Tomcat. And my stress dreams have completely disappeared. And I spend all my time flying different aircraft, which is phenomenal. I suppose in the last 24 hours, I'm just thinking of what I've been flying. Last 24 hours, I've been flying in the MiG-19, the Sabre, the Kurfürst, the 109, the Focke-Wulf Dora, the F-18, obviously, and a touch of F-5. So 7 aircraft in the last 24 hours. And I'm comfortable in all of them. And for me, it's just amazing. There's a very famous Dilbert cartoon where Dilbert says, I've had a really shitty day at work. I could go home because I've got a really fulfilling social private life. And he gets home and Dogbert says, Ratbert broke the Xbox. And Dilbert goes, I have nothing. And that's how I feel about DCS.
I have nothing.
It's sad. I don't know what I used to do at weekends now.
Well, I see why I do differently to you. I think what I've done is I started. What did I start with? The F5, didn't I? I did a lot of videos with F5. I think it's a really good, it's a really good little lead-in trainer. And I didn't want to come away from the F5. Everyone's saying to me, well, initially, of course, I jumped on X-Plane and then a few other things, but eventually I transitioned across DCS and I haven't done much X-Plane recently. Probably won't, to be fair, just because of the way I'm wrapped up in DCS. But I'm very much into going through checklists and setting radar screens up and all sorts of random stuff. And I quite like that. I know it's all geeky, isn't it? But when we start this jet up, didn't we? I mean, that took a long time to start this thing. And so I get in the F-18 now. And what I do is when I say do the work, I literally go, okay, tonight I'm going to learn about the INS, or tonight I'm going to learn about the EW suite, and I might use some videos for that, but I might use the flight manual as my preferred one to get in the flight manual because it's obviously so closely related to that. I might learn about the radar. I might, these kind of things, so what are rate speeds, what are radius speeds, this kind of stuff. But I'm not necessarily going into the fights or the weapon drops initially. I'm going into just starting it up, the taxiing around, getting airborne, and then doing a circuit or going into a pattern and landing again. And I think that's what I invest in more. And I see that's what I think. I don't see a lot of other DCS people. They just get airborne and go and shoot things. They don't know how to land because they get shot down. And one of the things here, I'm going to bring up a comment actually from Mark. He said, and this is something I want to talk to you about actually. We might cover this a bit early. Now, Mark knows a lot about this stuff, obviously. Used in lieu of existing OEM synthetic provisions where appropriate. Now, what he's getting at here, because I know Mark well, and we've talked about this a lot, you sent me a film earlier I want to play actually. I think probably now's a good time to do it, seeing as we're going to jump straight into this. And it's of I believe it's an A10 OCU. Is it out in Davis Monthan?
Davis Monthan, yes it is.
Yeah, okay, so that's great. We'll play that film then. Obviously I'm probably going to get a copyright strike here, so thanks so much, Simon. It's all
published on Facebook yesterday.
Oh, fine, okay. So it's and I've actually put our intro music a little bit underneath it, just so we kind of change the audio, and I'll leave the.
You should be fine. No one will notice. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's your systems anyway, isn't it? But you put your systems into the United States and they're flying with these things.
Yeah.
And what I want to get across is, obviously having been at Valley on Force Run as an instructor there, now there's 4 and 25. It amazes me that the Air Force, as in our Air Force, have failed to embrace this. Now I know we're under the United Kingdom Military Flying Training System with a company called Ascent Flight Training, and I know it's a wrapped up contract for the next, I think it's 13 years now, because I think they're halfway through with 12. But still, there must be some way of people jumping on this. Should we play this 1 minute film now?
Yeah, and I'll then comment on that. It makes a very
yeah. I'll play the 1 minute film. He says trying to work out how to play the 1 minute film. I know you'd be surprised. I think I'll just play it. God, this is it. Hashtag expert. Right, let's see if I can play it. Okay, and then we'll comment on it. Yeah.
Traditionally, how we train pilots on the ground is through classroom instruction, computer-based training, and full mission trainers, the FMTs downstairs. It's always challenging for us with the 3 squadrons here to basically find time to make sure everyone's got enough slots to get a certain amount of training done. So what we did about 2 years ago, we procured some squadron innovation funds to develop some new techniques that we found out that were being experimented with around the Air Force to build virtual reality training laboratories. And so that's where we're in here. So when students show up here to our program, we give them a pair of Oculus Quest, which they now have access to a 360-degree video library. When they put the goggles on, it looks like they're sitting in the cockpit. The biggest benefit for this is that you have a low-cost option to get students actually chair flying realistic events and sight pictures that they've never had before. You have to be able to practice like you play. The more we can do that, the more opportunities we have to train before we go fight, the better. And so this leverages that big time.
I think my intro music mixes very well with US Air Force videos. So we get copyright. Sorry. Yeah, go on then. So that was with the A10OC, which I visited, by the way.
So two things there. First of all, just a bit of history. It was the A10 that really kicked off DCS. The A10A, where we were approached. We were approached. Lock-On was approached by the DoD back in the day, and they said, "Do you think you could do something for us? Make a kind of synthetic cockpit?" And we said, "Yeah, sure, we can do that." And that was where really the whole high fidelity cockpits came from. So going back full circle now, what was really interesting was the pilot there said, we had to get hold of some squadron evasion funds in order to do this. And this is the main problem that with this kind of technology, there is no doubt that DCS is fantastic for training. I mean, it really is. You know, and because the big question is what are you trying to teach? And the most amazing thing, of course, is, you know, when we speak to True Grit, Gero Finker and the pilots on the Eurofighter OCU, they're saying, well, the German Eurofighter, they're saying, well, the guys who are flying DCS and they're doing, you know, F-16, F-18, and the guys who've done BVR, you know, they're doing all that. They're flying DCS, and they're coming to BVR phase in the Typhoon, and they know it all. They don't need to do the whiteboard. They're completely familiar with how it all works, and it really is phenomenal. So you don't need to be in a full fidelity Typhoon to understand what BVR is and how it works and how that kind of Fox 3 fight, you know, plays out. In fact, arguably, Gero was saying, and this guy is a former, he was the station commander at Lager, so he was the wing commander at Lager, the squadron commander at Wittmann. So he's got a couple of thousand hours Typhoon, and he was saying, actually, the DCS training is better for BVR because you actually get to fire the missiles and you have to evade the missile. You know, you've got to notch them, you've got to do all the right bits. So it's not just, you're not just playing, you know, okay, Fox 3, time it. You know, it's not all happening in your bonds. It's all played out with real numbers, with real, I suppose, electronic missiles, I suppose. So that's the first thing. So the main issue is funding. So there are only 3 ways to get into the military-industrial complex. One is that the king decrees that you shall do it, and that doesn't happen anymore. What does in some countries. The second way is that there's a tender, and the military-industrial complex takes over, the Thales, BAE Systems, the whoever, the Boeing, Lockheed Martins, and they bid and they get the contracts for, you know, 130 million pounds worth of simulators at Coningsby or wherever. And the third way is the way that we are experiencing right now, because almost all the pilots in all the world are flying DCS. So we have contracts with the F-16s in the US, at Luke with the A10s at Davis Monthan. We've just signed yesterday with the Canadian Air Force. We signed for a really interesting project in Norway, which is where they've signed up for 16 systems where they train all their engineering students. So the boys and girls engineers, they get to fly the F5 and the UH1 and the F16, so that they understand what the boys and girls who are flying the jets do. And then now the pilots, so we're now doing the whole offline intranet thing, MCS is called, Mission Combat Sim, which is what the Americans are flying at A10. So they, you can then do full up offline intranet stuff right up to level 5. You can go and do combat SAR. You can DIS with other units. We've got the Australian Air Force is now involved. They're getting their demos finally. French Air Force have 60 plus systems, the Mirage 2000 Force, and they are all flying complex sorties with DCS involving many versus many, 50, 60 players. And in fact, DCS was part of NATO exercise Spartan Warrior last month, and we're going to be part of Bold Quest coming up very shortly. So it's very much a push up from below, and also very much and the only way the pilots can fund us is by finding things like evasion funds. Only because the military industrial system is the way it is, and because DCS is so disruptive. Imagine if you're a British Aerospace shareholder and the pilots, the squadron pilot, they come along and say, hey, this Typhoon has just come out, by True Grit. It's better than our £12 million dome.
Well, let's say it like it is. I mean, I'm the strategy director and the training director for Aerilis. I mean, I understand well, especially the British aerospace companies to a T. We are a small, innovative startup, highly disruptive, but yet incredibly respectful of because you can bury companies like us. Of course, you can bury companies like us, but we're very respectful of these big companies. Luckily, we know a lot of people in them, and a lot of people in them are giving us a great leg up because they're very, we're trying to make the first military aircraft, flying training aircraft in the United Kingdom since 1974 and since the Hawk. So, we're very much into what BAE Systems are doing, but we also understand that they're like tankers. These things don't turn around. They're not agile. These big companies. Whereas, of course, people like you are. There was a question just came in. Someone said, actually, just briefly, I was flying with a young guy today. I do fly with people if they want to fly with me. As long as you don't put it up online and go, "Oh, I killed fast jet performance." It's like, whatever. I'll let you kill me. I'll let you kill me, fam. So this guy writes to me. He says,
I killed him.
You haven't killed me, whatever. I'll let you win. I'll let you win. So I couldn't see. I was misted up, and I was misted up on the VR. Yeah. I couldn't see. I was drinking tea. So he writes to me. He says, "Do you want to do some BFM?" I said, "Yeah, okay." So we got on before this, in fact, for about an hour, and it was pretty amazing. This guy taught himself. So he fought F-18, F-18, F-5, F-5, just guns only. And of course, one thing he didn't know about rules of combat. So didn't know about not firing until we crossed the 3-9 line and all these things that actually you realize why people do 3.5 years of flying training because But either way, his BFM was really good in rate fights in the vertical game, but in the slow speed game you could see that picture recognition for him was quite poor. He didn't know what reversal cues were. He didn't know what speeds to fly. And of course, I could climb up above him in a flat scissors and roll in behind him, turn it into rollers. He had no energy and he'd rate and I'd have more. So I was trying to explain it to him. Now, within an hour, I'd pretty much explain exactly. And you could hear him going, "Oh, right. So if I just do flat scissors and I just give a bit of ground, but I get height, so it looks like I'm losing, I can then roll in." Now, that's an hour of speaking to someone who's an airline pilot. And he starts to understand probably more about air combat than a junior student on 4 Squadron would do at RF Valley, just because he spent an hour with me. I used to teach at RF Valley, of course, doing this on a video game. Yeah. So when you talk about, the fact that you're small and it's all from the ground up, there's a reason it's from the ground up, because things from the ground up work because they have significant value. And that's why I got into DCS, because I could see in DCS that it's a lot easier for me to teach people in a very agile manner than it is by taking them to the flying training device at Valley or to the sim at Valley, where, and also all these things, of course, they output into TAC-View, which is another thing that's bolted, they can bolt on. Now I've got, like the French use, the full ACMI. So that's why these things I think are so important and so disruptive and so necessary out there.
Yeah, we're not, and the aim is not to replace stuff either. What's really interesting is that there's a fear that this kind of disruptive technology might, we might kill old jobs. and shut down whole industries. But we won't. What it does is it means DCS can be used for much better, high quality training. It can be used for different training. And in fact, the instructors, instead of sitting there going, well, this is right, oxygen on, okay, oxygen off, and instead of all that wasted time doing low value stuff, they can be used for much more high value training for anybody. But I do think as well, the other thing I want to pick up on is the different types of people who fly DCS. And you mentioned a few of your students or co-flyers, I suppose. And for me, they do fly. They're very much in two categories. You could call them pilots and the rest. I'm definitely in the rest, and you're definitely in the pilots bracket. I'd fly competently probably 15 of our 20 odd types. I'd say I'm pretty good on about 7 of them. I can't start any of them up, not for the life of me.
That's very bad.
I know. I can land them all. I can take off taxi, take off, land them all, but start up. Why would I waste time doing that? Life is short. I've got 2 hours in the evening. I don't want to spend half an hour waiting for the IN to align and check it, and other bits to warm up. I mean, when I was on 12 Squadron, we'd get in the cockpit. One I'd forgotten how to do it and had stress streams. The whole thing was ready to go. By the time we'd finished in the late 90s, when Ricky Cabelli was the boss, the ground crew, bless them, had started. The jet was there. All I did was strap in and press, nav, and off it was.
That's wrong. That's wrong.
It's all done. It's magnificent.
What kind of squadron is that? You have to go through the whole crewing out procedure. When I was on
12, I can tell you. Ask Cabelli.
The amount of times I crewed out of that jet there. You know what I mean? Did you do flag? You did flag, didn't you, out in the States?
Yeah, 2 reds and 1 green. Yeah,
we're doing the same campaign at the moment, aren't we? Where it's an aggressor campaign, and you just told me to download this thing for $9.99. And I thought, wow, whatever, because I've been a flag, expert hashtag. But what it does, it takes you through the aggressors. Obviously, for people that don't know, when you go to red flag in Nevada in the United States, it's like a mini war. Now, there's a problem because there's an airfield called Groom Lake in the middle, and it's full of aliens, and it's very secret, and you don't know about it. You didn't hear it here first, okay? Didn't hear it here. But either way, if you go north, you get into the north play areas where the war happens. But the aggressors can't do that. So they have to go around the south and back up and present on the west side, and you meet in the middle. And this campaign is written by some dude, whatever, for $9.99. It's pretty good, actually. And you play as an aggressor. And so you literally go through the whole check-in and the startup, by the way. You go through the startup as well, Simon.
No, you don't. You press left window home and it goes auto start and it goes.
I'm gonna mute that out, by the way, later so people can't hear. And then you start up, you taxi around. By the way, that flight lead, when you do start up, he's like, yeah, good jet, ready, taxiing. I'm like, I haven't even shut the canopy yet. You know what I mean? Flashing around the hands like this. So yeah, IN never aligns for me. I never align in. I just get airborne line. And then you have to go to the TACAN radial and things like this. I'm like, what? Bring up a TACAN, trying to start the TACAN and the 267 radial, not below 14,000. And all the cards are there and all the spins are there, special instructions. The whole thing's a nightmare. It really brings it back, doesn't it? I wake up in bed at night going, oh, what we're doing? Having those stress streams. You've given me the stress streams. That's what you've done. You've given them to me. But it's really good at making these campaigns. And so it kind of, if someone was, and I'm genuinely saying this, not because I'm not using DCS, but I'm genuinely saying, if before people went to flag, they played this campaign, they just did a few trips in this campaign, they would learn probably half the amount, because they'd read the spins. The spins don't change that much. The frequencies change, the special instructions, how to fly out of Nellis. Because as you know, you get to Nellis on one morning, you have the longest brief in the world with a massive, a theatre full of pilots who know how to fly in the States, and then British guys who are just, hung over to hell and just trying to wake up in a different country. And you don't remember anything. And you read the spins, like book this much. It's like, written in American, of course, which is a nightmare. If you play this campaign using DCS, you'll be like almost 70% of the way there before you even leave the UK.
Yes, you would. You'd be very, very familiar, and that whole familiarity with how do you do things. I thought about the familiarity, the familiar flight, and I thought, wow, this is really interesting. I always wondered what the aggressors did, how they got there and what they were doing, typical backseat, I just plugged in the waypoints and just followed the green dot.
Yeah, it's true though. But I did as well. But also they go in, they check in, they fence in, they do a G-warm like we do. Yeah. So they test a G-warm, they all fence in, they get ready to fight, fight's on, and then they go through showtime. So they say, yeah, you're tracking, your pod's tracking. Unfortunately, what I like about DCS is you haven't got to sit through the painstaking air-to-air debrief for about 4 hours. Because if you modelled that in, I'd leave DCS tomorrow. Because I went to one of those once because I shot down a friendly who was trying to shoot me down, actually, an F-18. The squadron went home 2 days later because they shot down loads of us. I had to sit through down an air-to-air debrief and go, stop, yeah, kill, Wolf 1 on an F-18, blue, he's a dick. He was a dick, actually, so I had to shoot him down. Let's have a look, see if we've got any questions. We've got some stuff here. Someone said, yeah, I do this a lot, by the way. The Skipjack 95, my man, took out a pen and paper and wrote notes whilst watching one of Red Kite's tutorials on the Lantern. I mean, it can be a level of complexity. This is why people get a bit frustrated sometimes with it, don't they? They're like, oh, it's so frustrating, I can't use the pod. It's like, yeah, because you've got to read about how to use the pod.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a massive intellectual challenge, and that's what makes it evergreen. We're not a subscription service, as you know, so we rely on selling stuff. We have 150 staff, which is a massive ogre to feed, as you can imagine. And what makes it evergreen is that it is close to reality. I have here under my desk, winking at me, a Warthog POTAS. You know, I use a Thrustmaster 16,000, and I've got to, one day out, and maybe even this weekend, I've got to sit down. I've got to plug in my Warthog, my $500 or $600 worth of Warthog, and I'm going to learn with it the A10C, so which looks like a complete beast. So, but it's just do the work. The intellectual challenge makes, and I think, oh, really? Why don't I just take a 4-ship of F5s and go and do some lovely dumb bombing and miss my miles and come back and go to the bar?
Well, you dragged me out of bed on a Sunday morning. I remember this. You're like, sent me a text. Oh, Tim, can you come and just make up the number 4 in a 4-ship? I'm in bed, literally, with my wife. I'm like, oh. She's like, where you going? It's like 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, oh, 4-ship, Simon, 4-ship. I don't want to. Anyway, it was only a night sortie off carriers in the Gulf on the F-18. I hadn't even mapped anything to my stick. I'm like, yeah, anyway, right.
You coped admirably. There's not much panicking.
Hashtag expert. Yeah, I was a bit out of my depth, though. I was like, especially as we couldn't see anyone, could we? I was like, can everyone turn the lights on, please? It would help. But it's supposed to be tactical. Turn the lights on. Right. Yeah, there we go. So this is one of the things, isn't it? When you move so quickly, and you do move so quickly to bring out modules, as you said, the A10C's out now, isn't it? The newest one.
Yeah.
And apparently it's the most complete aircraft, you're saying, at release. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I mean, clearly we had a great base, but
yeah.
I suppose. Well, the thing is, like, inevitably, when you're doing complex aircraft, Tomcat, F-16, F-18, you can see that just like the real world, but obviously shortened to 3 to 4 years as opposed to 10 to 15 years. When you look at the development of the GR1, for example, through the GR4, and you look at how its capability was added to all the time, and you look at the Typhoon, also classic. We start with almost nothing. At least it didn't have a concrete nose, but you start with almost nothing, and you then you go on to being something that can pretty much do anything you want it to, and after 10 years, it's fantastic. But it's the same with DCS. We come out with a kind of a minimum IOC where you've got dumb bombs, and then the complex stuff, it's just pure programming. And it's just the amount of time it takes to do this, SLAM ER and all the different types of Maverick and the Tomahawk and all those kind of things. It just takes forever.
Yeah, but I'd rather, that's the thing, you could wait for a complete release, but I'd rather have a beta and then have additionals onto it. And
I would advise everybody to download Open Beta, and then of course you're then also really part of the discussion. Because we have guys on Open Beta, pointing things out that we've missed, and sometimes it's often it's really, really critical stuff, and sometimes it's stuff that we just that you think, well, hang on, well, why haven't we flagged that up? We've lived with it for age. For example, when you got the heat blur coming out the back of the F-18 on deck, and you got the blast ramp up. It heat blurs the HUD. Because we, hadn't put the right filters in place, so that it's obviously a fairly quick fix. But we've seen it, but not really seen it because we're too close to it. And this chap said, "Why does this happen? Why is my green lighting heat blurring? Well, it shouldn't do. Well, it does. Oh, yes, it does." So being part of the Open Beta community really is really helpful to us. I mean, and it's not because we're a company that wants to make money. We're primarily a company of geeks, of aviation mad enthusiasts who want to make the best flying sim in the world and then just go and do it. but the great thing is that there are millions of you out there, and it is so fantastic. By the way, I have noticed the requests in for the Jag. Yeah, love that. Jaguar. And I flew the Jag once, backseat obviously. Had a Lossie. That was interesting. Yeah, Jet Promise, lovely. Puma, Lightning, fantastic. Tornado, yes, probably won't be done by us because it's a two-seater. But yes, there is so much to do, and we only have so many people. And of course, we've got all the world's militaries asking us questions. Can you do this? Can you do that? Would you consider doing this? So kind of the offline stuff with them for their training. It's you can imagine the kind of things we're asked the whole time. So it's just purely time, and it's getting it right. DCS is now, I think, 5 million, 6 million lines of code. What on earth does that mean? The Bible is 800,000 lines of code, so it's 7 Bibles worth of writing where we are at the moment, which is why it just clogs up your computer completely.
Yeah, when I see an update, I'm like, no, because I've got quite a few modules now, obviously. So I start updating. I'm like, well, I'll update that and I'll just leave the country for a couple of weeks and come back. But I understand why it's got to be. Right, here's a question that's in capitals. And we'll have one of these because obviously someone's listened to what I've said for once, which doesn't happen often. Are there any plans to bring a closer range of airframe types to World War II? Currently, disparity, i.e. 43 Spitfire Mark 9 and late 44. I don't know, that's a complicated one. I don't fly the Warbirds at the moment.
Good question, but I'll answer that, Kev. Yeah, there is a disparity. Our ambition is to, if we were doing it again, we'd start with Battle of Britain and not start with the K, the K4 and the D9, the end late war, late 44, early 45, Focke-Wulf and Messerschmitt. So the G6 and the Spitfire 1, Spitfire 2, and the Hurricane. We are going to do those at some stage. At the moment, though, it's understanding the historical demand versus the game demand. Obviously, when you come to something like, I suppose, War Thunder, you want to be in the best aircraft, so you want to shoot everybody down. It's the different, and how many people really care whether it's a Spitfire 2 or a Spitfire 9? How many people know the difference, or a Spitfire 14? So that's I suppose it's when we come to limiting it historically as an option, obviously, that's when that really gets interesting. Our next, as far as Warbirds go, our next major move, we've got the Mosquito coming out, obviously. And after that, we're going to go east. We're going to go Japan and Pacific. So that is the next big direction, I think. You can
do the carriers. So you're going back World War II carrier based
Essex class carrier and the Akagi.
You're going to get like suicide bombers and stuff?
That's a very good question, actually. We haven't discussed those. I'll be completely honest. We've not discussed kamikaze. No. But no, it'll probably be somewhere early 44. We'll be aiming, I would guess.
Interesting.
So, yeah, so I think the Warbirds are fantastic. The jets are easy peasy. The Warbirds are much more difficult and much less forgiving, especially if you're kind of yanking the stick all over the place, because they start tucking and doing all kinds of funny things as you've seen. So that and they're really difficult. They've no computers or anything to aim, so it's all TNAR. That looks about right. So
it's easy for me, because it's all built in. So
somebody has said the Jag only has one seat. Yes. It was a Jaguar Trainer 2-seater. Whoever that was.
2 seats. But yeah, the Mosquito would be great. Someone else said Phantom, which is one of my favorites, of course. I don't know.
Goodness me, I tell you, for me as a boy growing up, the Phantom was I decided to join the Air Force. It was Extra Air Day 1968 or 69, I think, something like that. And you can date me now. And I would have been about 8 years old, no less than that, 6 years old. And a lightning came over the crowd on the deck at doing 595, and I watched this thing in amazement because, of course, the sound hit, and everybody else just dropped their ice creams and children screaming, and I thought, and clearly something in me went, got to do that one day. Anyway, up until joining the Air Force, I was on the last Chibnall course that had a lightning guy go to it. Tim Brunskill, his name was. Also now, obviously, he became Gunskill. So he was the last guy posted to lightnings. But I actually wanted to go Phantoms when I joined. I thought, I've got to fly Phantoms. And to my eternal disappointment, then I wanted to join the Navy and I wanted to fly off the Ark or the Eagle. And fly Navy F4s because my brother was Navy, my old man was Navy. And then, of course, there was only Sea Harriers. So I looked at the odds of getting, and they said, well, you probably go helicopters, lad. You know, you've got a pilot's license, but you're not very good. Well, thank you very much, sir. So I joined the Air Force. And then I thought, oh, air defense, seriously? Really? Really? What? So I ended up on bombers, which is just phenomenal. Yeah.
It is, because we're legends, of course, because we used to make history all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, pilots go and make films, don't they? They asked me to be in that Top Gun too, and I said no, give it back to Tom because he needs it. He's on a pension now, isn't he? But you know,
yeah, Tom's a puker. Did you know that? Oh, Tom. Yeah, Tom's a puker, but don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anyone. No, exactly. No, he wouldn't let you do that. Right, let's have a look. Greetings from Argentina. Yeah, how you do? Yeah. So Aviate B2. Now I must admit, so you've had one of those moments. You put your VR on, of course, and you're like, whoa, this is crazy. The first time I did that, I got into a Harrier. Yeah, it's fine, you know. Obviously, you know, Harrier mates, whatever, drink milk, don't they? That wine comes up, doesn't it? And it just sounds like the bar at Whistling or something, or Cottesmore. But when the engine starts. But anyway, I thought I'd suck it up. So I got in a Harrier, put the headset on. I was like, whoa. Got airborne. Obviously, Nos, Vis, Viv, Hero. They made it out to be such a difficult airplane. I'm like, it's easy. And then I'm looking around, going, this is. Well, I'm like, yeah. Then the aircraft inverts itself and everyone dies. I'm like, this is really strange. This actually feels like it's really odd. Maybe I think a lot of it, what DCS does very well is the lighting. Just the lights, the shadowing and everything seems to be, yeah, it's really well done. And I just felt like, well, this is probably as close as I've come now to actually being like in a Hawk or whatever in this airplane here, you know, and getting airborne. I was going to ask something about weather. The chap I was flying with today, like I talked about earlier, a 737 first officer from Southern Ireland, I think it was. He was talking about weather. He was saying, have you got anything in the future where you're looking at improving the weather structure of DCS?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know if he's played with the weather. You can do all weathers in DCS. You know, all of the films you see, the default films, you know, it's blue, it's cav okay, you know, and the sun is high in the sky because mission designers and often can't be asked unless they're doing an 0700 carrier launch from somewhere dark, in which case they then can be asked. But yeah, we are looking at doing real world proper dynamic weather, the kind that like you've seen on Microsoft Flight Sim. So the answer is yes. Weather is right up there. In fact, weather is ahead of the priorities. It's further up our list than, for example, air traffic control, which is
who needs air traffic anyway?
Way down on it. It's funny actually. You know, flying with people, and a lot of people really keen on getting all the ground procedures right. And I said, well, hang on a minute. I said, whenever we flew on operations, we never spoke to anybody. It was all completely silent. Everybody knew what they were doing, and you know, especially before HavQuick. Complete radio silence. So you know, you wouldn't talk from takeoff to landing.
Well, let's be fair. Even with HavQuick, it was kind of radio silence because someone would always mess it up, wouldn't they? You know what I mean?
Mickey check.
Any plans for European theatre? Haven't you got Normandy?
Right. European theatre. Yes, is the answer. Yes. That to answer that question, Michael. Yeah, that is a plan. Definitely. We are very aware of two things. One is the Cold War core of many of our blue aircraft. And of course, that was when, you know, from 1980-ish, 83, 84, when you had the tornadoes in theatre, all the way through to 89 and even into the early 90s. So that kind of 80s feel in Germany, you know, those of you who watch Deutschland 83 and all that kind of thing, you know, the Reds are about to come over the wall and will the bomb go off? And, you know, we lived in fear then, not of coronavirus or of climate change, but of a proper Soviet-Russian war machine and Third Shock Army sprinting across the Fulda Gap, sprinting into Frankfurt. So yes, Central European map, yes, and high fidelity Russian aircraft, yes. It's just a case of permissions is the biggest thing. It's as you can imagine, we don't want to do stuff that's half-assed. It has to be proper. It's got to be with all the real manuals, all the real data, as far as we can tell, and it's got to have the approval of the manufacturers. So that's one of the biggest blocks. You know, I take my hat off to the guys at TrueGrit who spent 2 years alongside the people, you know, the Munich people, the Eurofighter people, just getting all the what you call it, Airbus EADS people, getting all of the permissions in place. We would never have done it, with Eagle Dynamics would have done it, not a chance. But ex-Luftwaffe boys, fantastic job.
So when are we seeing a Typhoon release then?
That's a great question.
Okay, fair enough, because I like this in a way. And don't worry about it, it's fine, because
I actually don't know.
That's all right, because there's so much out there to fly anyway. I wouldn't jump into the Typhoon straight away anyway. I like those. See, there was some aircraft that you wouldn't have thought you liked. Like I just so happens right now with one of the companies I'm working for, there's an airfield in Switzerland, and it just so happens this airfield in Switzerland that are hoping that we might go in and take residency up there, maybe potentially. Let's just say, if, for example, we don't recognise the funding from the United Kingdom, then there's funding in Central Europe, shall we say, possibly. Can't go any further than that. However, it used to be an F5 base. So I've been flying the F5 out of there. It's right in the valleys. It's beautiful, beautiful place, right in the heart of Switzerland. I mean, I wouldn't be able to afford a pizza or anything, so it's so expensive, isn't it? But it's, you can get wrapped up in some aircraft that are really genuinely nice to fly. And the F5 is one of those. And apparently the A10 is one of those as well. There are some lovely aircraft out there to fly. Yeah, and a Canberra. Let's not make that. Let's not make Canberra, shall we? That's not.
I've been clearly, I've avoided some jets. So I was trying the L39 and the 101 recently, which are interesting and easy and underpowered. That's like being in a jet province. My DCS really is combat and digital combat. So it's not about. It really isn't about tooling around in small aeroplanes doing nice stuff. I mean, it really is to try and get that feel of flying and fighting. And flying and fighting en masse in big formation. Now we've got the 3 or 30 series graphics cards coming out where you can't get hold of one for love nor money. Any of you who can upgrade to 64 gigs of RAM and a 30 series card, I've seen it. It flows beautifully. So, what can I say? It's just fantastic.
But then, of course, your house will catch fire and you won't have any money for anything else in your life because your electricity bill will be so huge. Those 30 series cards.
Question on next modules. So yeah, Mosquito. Yeah, Ehawk, I hear you, mate. We're hoping to get the Mozzie out before Christmas, which would be really cool. And it can go further than the Tornado could. It can take 4,000 pounds to Berlin and back at the same speed. And then after that, Q1 next year, the MI-24 Hind P, which should be fantastic. I mean, it really should. And that's what I might seriously. I mean, I've dabbled with the helicopters. Some people are fanatics with them, but I've dabbled with the helicopters. With the Gazelle Gazelle is lovely, a lovely easy start. I'd recommend that. It's just a fantastic aircraft to fly. But also there are some aircraft that are really surprising. Su-25 is just fantastic. The Su-25T, it really is. It really is an amazing thing. It's not a fully clickable cockpit, but some of the weapons you get on there, massive TV guided telegraph poles you can fire off from 20 clicks. Fantastic. MiG-19, really surprisingly good. So
I haven't used that yet. No, I think that old school kind of combat will be quite interesting. That's pure BFM. Yeah, F5 versus F5 this is why they use F5 as aggressors, of course, in the States, because it's a very pure BFM aircraft, isn't it? But anyway, we've had someone here saying, stop talking about the airplanes. Let's get back to that one, shall we? No, well, let's get back to that comment then, because who said that? Let's have a look. Here we go. Stop asking about specific jets. Now, if you want to, if you're going to shout at me, you've got to use capitals, fam. Look, I'll put it up here in one of the banners. Look, if you're going to ask questions and stuff, capitals, innit? Right. Profitability main driving factor. Oh God, I don't think you're making much money out of each one. But the thing is, you got to get paid, right? Else people can't sit at home. Yeah. Anyway, you're gonna get that. You're gonna get things like that. Let's have a look. So, if you want to ask a question, it really helps, guys, if it is in capitals, okay? Because then I don't have to scroll through all this stuff. I do actually get asked to go flying with people a lot, and today was just one off. But I do. If you want to take my time, I'm going to work out a way of you doing that, and I can maybe do some training. Now, there was a Hawk, wasn't there, in the module? It's not there anymore.
Nope.
It's obviously it's one of the world's favorite, about 1,000 of them made, one of the world's favorite trainers. Hawk T2, Hawk T1, anything like that. I don't see any of those in the pipeline. We should probably move on from airplanes. It's just interesting.
Let me just touch Hawk briefly. Yeah, Hawk wasn't our best product ever, and it became unsupportable, sadly. We would love to do another Hawk. It's just not up there in our priority list of all of the things that we could do. If somebody comes along and says, will you do us a Hawk? Industry comes along and says, the answer is, yeah, of course we will. But we'll need funding. The jets are not trivial to make. So, for example, let me give some numbers. It's about per aircraft, depending on how long it takes, it's about 1.5 million at least per year. So in terms of man years, man hours, US dollars. So if you think about the Hornet, for example, which is 18 months, you're talking 2 and a bit million. They cost an absolute fortune, and then to support and to continue to develop. So, a simple Hawk is not a trivial undertaking, and a Hawk T2 clearly is not a trivial undertaking either. So the answer is yes, it really is about priorities. So the kind of things that we'd all like to see a Phantom, fantastic. We'll want to see that. Let's see a Tornado, yes, probably. We want to see an Apache, of course we do. We want to see a Cobra, of course we do. We want to go and fight Vietnam, yeah, immediately. Give me a Thunder Chief, I'm all over that. So just where we've only got so many people, and of course we're doing the mission editor, we're doing all the ground units as well, and we're doing the weather, and we're doing the voice chat, and we're doing the new Earth module, and there's about 1 million things going on, and it's just time and space and feeding the ogre.
Well, you did call it DCS World. I mean, if you called it DCS Galaxy, I'd be like, where's my moon buggy and my space shuttle? It's your own fault, and you know that, don't you? You brought it in yourself. Right. Someone wants a tank. We all want tanks, and thank you for writing capitals, guys.
And that's a very good question, Mr. Prime. The answer to that is yes. That is in the long-term plan. Full fidelity tanks and ships. Yes, we have been asked that by people who shall remain nameless, and the answer to that is yes. Yes.
I want a tank. I want a tank to hide in trees. Now, we ejected, didn't we? I think we shot each other down or something.
Tim, when I was your wingman.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was honestly, I had a switch pigs. It was a 9 Lima, wasn't it? I was behind you, joining your formation.
Yes. What the fuck was that?
Sorry about that. Yeah, my bad. And so I ejected as well next year, I think, so I ran out of fuel. And we ended up
floated down together.
Yeah, and ended up in a town, didn't we? Either side of a town. I mean, you can sort of like walk towards each other. Now, it'd be great if you could actually meet up and go, oh, cafe, let's go for, you know what I mean? Can you build me a cafe? That'd be nice. That'd be great.
Today we were having a discussion on, and this is not secret. Today we're having a discussion on civilian units, and what we need to do rapidly for our professional users is we need to get more collateral damage in there. But and you know what I mean, Tim, because when and everybody else out there will probably, is when the militaries do the training, especially in brush wars, low intensity conflict, the biggest thing is the rules of engagement and don't cause any civilian deaths. And what we need to do is expand greatly our our people, our types of people, our cars, our types of cars, SUVs, trucks, tankers, buses, you name it. So the whole civilian world needs expanding, and we're really just beginning to get to grips with that properly. So in world, the key is world. You've got to, if you want to run a real system in a world, you've got to create a realistic world.
Wouldn't that be fascinating to have a town that was active? So, because and I know when you're doing close air support, this sort of thing, you're looking down a pod, you see a lot moving around, and you've got to work out what your target is and what your friendlies are and what your laws of armed conflict are. Now, the problem is, of course, what I tend to find is I'll join a server, and of course, everyone's flying AMRAAMs against someone else, and then maybe some guys go off to an airfield and do some drops. And it's like, guys, there's other bits and pieces we got to consider. You know what I mean? Like not shooting down your flight lead or something. I mean, that's quite important as well. But yeah, you're right. But I think it needs to be a little bit more like that. I did see something down here that was quite interesting. Oh, someone said a surprise.
The answer's F4.
That's a surprise module.
No. But the biggest thing, Dimitri's just asked, what's the biggest thing you're working from the priority list that I'm excited about personally? It's the Phantom, because I grew up, one of my first memories, along with Exeter Air Show and a Lightning at 3'6", touching 600 knots, is the Vietnam War on the background. And, Navy, F4Bs off Carl Vinson on Yankee Station, that in black and white, just fantastic. So I'm completely enamored as a child with all of those Vietnam War images. Yeah, the F4.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually.
US Marine F4s at Da Nang. I mean, goodness me, I can't wait.
You know, we spoke about tanking the other day, and that was one of the interesting things, because I went up and I was doing that mission where I'm in the container. No, I'm not in the container. I'm north of the container, aren't I? So I'm at flag. I've done a fight against 2 F-14s. Obviously, took them down like dogs, both of them easy. It's not easy, is it? That's the problem. It's not easy at all. And then I was like, fuel. I thought, well, I'll just nip north to the tanker on the tow line and plug in and see where I can get the gas. Now, beforehand, I haven't been able to stay plugged in. So the key to it for me was like sitting behind there. You're sitting in position, aren't you? Ready to tank. And I'm like, how am I going to do this better this time? And it's like anything. It's to the knot, isn't it? It's so specific. I think this dude was sitting at 240 knots. So probe out and everything like that went in. And literally about 240 knots. If I'm at 242 knots, 243, the closure rate is excessive, isn't it? In the Tornado, I don't remember if you remember this, when we were tanking Tornado, we'd leave one engine in reheat, like nudge it in, and the other engine we just use on one engine just to try and nudge it up. And of course, the nav in the back would be like, mate, you're going left, you're going right, mate. And you're like, whoa, leave me alone. Here, you know what I mean? It feels
don't stab it.
You'd be like, you'd be doing this as well. I know, I can hear you now. It's like, because when you're tanking, guys, if you don't understand it, the probe comes out in this little thing. I'm the probe now, like that by the nose, and then you drive it in, and you've got to focus on references. You can't look at the basket or the probe because the probe's kind of here, and it's like if you look at that, you're like, ugh. Of course you do when it's at night and it's your last stab at it. You're like leaning on it. Oh, yeah. So the nav in the back will say, upright, down, left. As you drive in on your references to the jet, the references on the airplane, like, and you can see corner of your eye, but when someone's actually watching the basket, because at the last minute the jet does this, doesn't it? Like, rips it off or something, doesn't it? It sends it down the right engine. But I'm thinking that as well. I'm tanking. I'm like, this is a bit kind of like I'm leaning, so I'm looking at the probe and driving in. It's actually quite good. It's quite realistic. And then of course, as I'm about to get there, he starts his turn, doesn't he? Like that. I'm like, anyway, so I shot him down.
I was doing testing with a bunch of guys earlier, and I'd forgotten. We were testing the damage model, with the damage model. And yes, dynamic campaign is coming. I'll just answering some of the questions there. I was flying with some guys earlier, and I hadn't really. I was on open mic, so using Discord on open mic rather than push to talk, and I'm not used to it. And what I hadn't realised is that I was in a high G fight, and I hadn't realised that I grunt, so I'm still grunting to knock the black out. Even though I'm and I said, do any of you find this erotic listening to Simon's voices?
But it's funny that because you're right. When I've got my head on the VR up here somewhere, you are thinking that, and then of course I wonder why I've got neck pain the following day. Yeah. It's like because you're massive neck workout. Yeah, well I've got what have I got? I've got the Track IR now as well, and I must admit I'm not as much of a fan with Track IR as I am with the VR. But
you haven't tried the high fidelity. You've only done the standard Oculus, haven't you? You've not
I am. This is how I roll, okay? Because I make it hard for myself. No, I haven't got Rift S. No, so
it's like living in what was it called, NTSC. So before I've been 4K UHD with my Rift S, comparatively, and you're on a little black and white TV going, is it football?
Oh, I am, and that's why when someone shoots me down, I'm like, well, I'm using the Rift. It's not because I'm not very good. I'm using a Rift. No, well, there's the HP Reverb 2 G2 coming out soon, of course. Obviously, back delays, back order, and you want to wait for some people to
as well as coming out. So
which one's coming out?
The Oculus Quest 2, and that should replace all Oculuses.
Yeah, you got to sign in via Facebook and stuff, don't you? That kind of stuff, I think.
Yes,
yeah. And then they've got your soul and stuff, haven't they? Facebook got your soul. I'll give Mark a call and say, Mark, can you exempt me on that? Me and Mark were like this, you know what I mean? So I don't know about the Quest actually, but you'll get reviews on it and people will use it. And I don't need the fidelity right now, just because I can either tag a label onto them, or I can. I did a 10v1 today. 10v1, thought I'd have a challenge. I was an F-18 guns and 2 9 Limas only, and against 10 Iranian F5s with gun only. I'm not going to tell you the outcome, okay? Most of you can guess, all right?
What did you have them on?
What's that, sorry?
What skill level did you have them on?
I had them on trained.
Okay.
Trained, yeah. And I'm not being funny. I flew it about 4 times. well, I flew it like 3 times and died pretty quickly and thought, I've got to rethink this. If you've watched any of my videos, which you have, of course, I kind of took some time out, went to the whiteboard right next to, I whiteboarded it and went, right, I've got 10 contacts coming in, all at the same. I'd put them staggered about 2,000 apart, but 10 of them all coming in, all doing, 0.6, whatever. Obviously, we're not going to do any gun in face, but there was a tactic I kind of used at the merge. And I eventually realized that was the best tactic. And then I also realized that the only way you're going to defeat these things is by breaking them apart and keep passing high aspect with the group, because they're aggressive, aren't they? You know what I mean? Keep passing high aspect with the group until you can flush them apart. And as you start flushing apart, you start seeing snapshot opportunities for gun, especially on the radar modes. And that's what I started getting. You tended to find there was like a wing. I don't know why. It seems like you have a flight lead and a wingman on pairs. I don't know. I didn't put them in as pairs, so I don't know whether, maybe I did. And you can tend to go wingman lead, and then rounds are coming past you, and then you're on to something else. But it's quite an intense experience, actually. You sort of get away from it, and you're like, oh, I've got to go a cup of tea.
Did you try to fight the MiG-15?
No, I haven't yet. No. So I must admit that's
I'm fighting a 4-ship of MiG-15s on ace level.
with what? Another big 15?
Yeah, guns only.
Sorry, MiG-15s versus what?
Yeah, versus you in an F-18 versus a 4-ship of MiG-15s on ace level. I'd be interested.
On ace level?
Yeah, with 4 ace MiG-15s against you.
And I'm in F-18, guns only, yeah?
Just a thought.
No, okay, that's pretty good. It's a pretty good idea for a video. Let's go to Nellis. Do it at Nellis. No, I like these things. They're interesting. They make the world a better place.
Yeah, look at this. Yeah, Lou, I'm with you. Cold War aircraft, big, Flogger B, Flogger D. I'm all over that.
Yeah, I don't know. We just had that's complicated. Joint. Can't wait for G2. Yeah, G2 reverb. Okay, people are talking about Vive Pro 1390 plus reverb. Oh yeah, crikey. There's some pretty good stuff there, isn't there? There's going to be some amazing stuff. So people don't know my setup. It's actually in the description below. I fly a Warthog throttle stick, and my pedals are from the 16,000 range from the Thrustmaster. They're not. I just use normal little pedals. Okay, so that's what I fly. I quite like that, but I understand why people like the 16,000 M series of joystick. I just prefer the Warthog, because when I'm on VR, it's got all the switches there and everything, isn't it? So it's all quite switchable. So I prefer that, and it actually feels like the Hawk, to be fair. Let's have a look. Okay, I don't understand some of these questions. Are you reading the same questions that I am reading down here?
I've got to White Eagle. Will DCS always be free download and paid modules? Yes. Tigger noted on your F-16. I'll ask Wags about that. Is the F-16 sound? It sounds too clear. A lot of endless discussion on DCS about sounds. Big discussions at the moment on getting the, we've revised the GAU 7, GAU 8 in the A10, revised the sounds on that, and there's a video out literally, I think 2 days ago, got 50,000 hits on YouTube just watching the new sounds on the GAU 8. Big campaign internally at the moment to get sounds for CBUs and JSOWs. So as I say, there are about 8 million things to do, boys and girls, and it's just we just want to, it's got to work all the time, first of all, and we don't want to. We've changed our processes, you've probably noticed, and done massive bug fixing. So what we don't want to do is bring stuff in that breaks other stuff anymore.
Yeah, I was going to talk about bug fixing. Actually, that's great.
In the past.
What's that one? Let's have a look. I'm just going to bring up some ones that are interesting me. So community mods. Are you supportive of community mods?
Yeah, absolutely. And really interesting, actually. For example, the A4 is really good because we can all go fly Vietnam on it. It's not as good as a DCS module for all kinds of reasons, but if you're just a casual flyer, you won't notice. The guys who've just done the MB336, the Italian trainer community, we're engaged with them. They're going to be proper DCS third party. So there are many ways to skin particular cats. In order to become a third-party developer, there are so few brilliant programmers out there, and they really are kind of artists, these guys. The lead programmer is the key in everything that happens in DCS world. So any project, for example, Supercarrier, the lead programmer is you've got to get that person 100% right. And they've got to know what they're doing, and they've got to just have that feel, that Fingerspitzengefühl, as the Germans say, that fingertip feel about what works and what doesn't, and why it doesn't, which ones are noughts to put in which order. for simple people like me. So they're very few and far between. So to qualify as a third-party developer, we ask people to develop stuff first. Go ahead, do something. Let's look at it. Show us your lead programmer, show us what they've done, and let's engage. But it's very it's not trivial, and it's not cheap.
This is exactly what people don't seem to pick up on a little bit, is the amount, as you said, about the amount of hours that go into it, person hours, that go into it, D&I training, and and obviously the expense of some of these modules that go in. I mean, as well, you can't just have people gashing in there going, "Oh, this is my Super Wonderbird type thing I've made up," and then wrecking all the program for other people, can you? So, we need to wrap this up, by the way. So the 2021 roadmap, then obviously everyone's going to be at home because this virus is never going to go away and we're never going to be able to socialize again. So your sales are going to go through the roof, of course. You're going to say, Tim, come and work for DCS and change the world. And I'm going to go, can you afford me? And then everyone's sat at home, aren't they, playing DCS? What happens in 2021?
What happens in 2021? In 2021, well, you're going to start off with the Hind, is the first big thing. I think that in Q4 of this year, there will be big announcements on aircraft that have been discussed today. They will not be available though until 2022. The big aircraft. I'm banned from talking about them. Obviously, the only one I can talk about is the Hind. So that'll be there in Q1, which will be fantastic. The big thing for 2021 will be the dynamic campaign, which is missing from DCS. And that's one of my favorite things, going back to, secret weapons, the Luftwaffe, where you could take a B-17 wing, or you could take a 262 wing, and you could fly 30 missions on that, 30 missions in time with pilots, with a roster, with different missions through space and time, and it would have an effect. And that is, I suppose I would, to be honest, I'd say we underestimated just how hard it is to do a proper, competent dynamic campaign. It's quite easy to do a simple one that is not convincing. You go, oh, yeah, all right, yeah, okay, fine, enough. I'm not doing that ever again. To do a proper, engrossing campaign that has endless replayability, and then you want to go and do it with different aircraft in different era, more of a challenge than we thought, and also all the real world connections. So the biggest thing will be the dynamic campaign and modern air combat. So the modern air combat thing, which is, I suppose, if you like, it's like Flaming Cliffs 3. So it's 14 lower fidelity models aimed at the crossover market. So those people who have done their War Thunder, they've done the gaming stuff. So those people who've done gaming flying, and they want to go and do the work. They want to come and do the work, put the hours in, put in the hard yards, and actually learn to fly proper aircraft. And they begin to understand why it takes 2 to 3 years. Now, a lot of people fall out. Our fallout rate is phenomenal. The downloads, thousands of downloads. But those people who actually persist through to learning a jet, to flying a jet, then buying more modules, it's a fairly low percentage. It's actually it's not dissimilar to any complex game online. But what we want to do is improve that number. So modern air combat is that kind of stepping stone, where it is you'll still have all the superb graphics. It just won't be as hard to do stuff, and it'll be much more. Like you would expect a game to be. So you don't, in the real world, as you know, Tim, you've got your nav, and you've got your green writing, and you've got your radio, and that is, you've got your, if you're lucky to have a link, that's your SA. You can't press F10 and look at where everybody is. You can't press F5 and go to the next bandit. You can't go switch labels on. Blimey, there they are. The whole SA thing is the big thing, and all games cheat, in my experience, because they all have SA cheats. And the best thing about DCS is that if you fly it purely with no labels, it can be a real bugger. And you go, right, I'm just not doing it, it's too hard. And a lot of people do that. So there is a stepping stone, and there's a big market for the stepping stone, where we come in with 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, depending on which package you take. So that's the other next big thing. So modern air combat and dynamic campaign, and in terms of individual modules, the Hind.
And this is why this is why I have customers that pay me to come and teach some stuff on there, because of course I don't use all those F10s and things, and I mean I genuinely don't. And when I'm up in Nellis or whatever on the ranges up there, and I literally have to go back to Point India, which is where the aggressors start, turn around with the radar or get a bra or speak to, you know, whoever the controlling agency is and try and find out where that traffic is, you know, and interrogate it. And that's what you would do for real, you know, and that's what makes it so great, because if I could just cheat and have labels and all this kind of stuff, then I'm playing a game and I don't feel it's a game when I turn it off.
Then you just stop playing it because it's pointless. Once it stops becoming a challenge, much like your partner, not your partner, one's partner.
I'll tell you, you said that, yeah.
No, Mickey doesn't want that kind of stuff, thankfully. It's, you know, an endless challenge is always a good thing. When it just gets easy, it just rolls over. You go, all right, enough of that. Let's go do something else. Go do something more interesting. And that's why. And one of the great things that, you know, DCS is that the whole striving for realism is that it's going to remain hard forever, because real is hard. So we're not going to make it easy, but we do recognise that we need a kind of OCU, if you like, a conversion TWU type place where people are stepping up from, you know, War Thunder, and they go, holy cow, this is virtually impossible. And it is. We're trying to make it easier, stepping people in with intro videos and things. Those are coming shortly. So we're stepping people in. It's just, we need to do more of that. We need to do more of the welcoming people into the community. I mean, the community does a fantastic job online. It really does. You know, all the people, when you look at the Grim Reapers and the Growling Sidewinders and the, you know, the it doesn't matter, all the online units, but a lot of people are really afraid of, you know, it took me a year to go online, to fly online against other people, a year. So, you know, 90% of our flyers they're not flying online. And I get, you know, I really do understand that. They want to live in their own worlds, and fine, I do understand that. And that has to be as exciting as possible, but they have to understand, they have to feel that we are on their side and we are helping them. And I don't think we've done enough of that, and we're addressing that. They'll be pleased to hear.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about doing a campaign myself where I take people through the process I went through. Because remember, I didn't like this when I first left the military. So, and I remember saying to you, didn't I? I remember saying, I don't like playing this because it's difficult. It's a learning curve. And
it's hard, yeah. It's hard.
It's hard.
It's keyboard, you know, it's keyboard crashing hard.
It is. Oh, yes. Like, why is my INS not aligning in this F-18? Why is it not aligning? Right, shut everything down, as we do normally. Right, give it 3 minutes. Start it back up again. Yeah, done that several times.
You cash out here in my 3 years later, and, you know, I've tried to taxi a MiG-19 out, and I've got it in full burn, and it's not moving. I'm thinking, what? And the chocks are still in. All right, ground crew, chocks away. Thank you.
I did that the other day in the F-18 as well, because normally the parking brake's on when I start and the chocks are in. I'm like, Chief, who left the chocks in? Who left the chocks in? So it's so realistic that you shout at your ground chief.
I'm shouting at myself in my man cave as well.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, Chief, take the chocks out. What are you doing? Disconnect the ground power. Let's go back to our tornado days. Look, we better wrap this up, I guess, really.
Yeah.
Right, let's have a look. One of the questions was one of my favorite ones. It's not a question, actually. It's a statement. So I'm just going to try and read out. Come back up here. Goodness me, it's going back up there. I should have. Where is this? If there's any questions you see there, any kind of things that you think you want to comment on, by all means.
Let's have a look.
Until I find my one, because I'm trying to find one here. Paul Jackson, good to see you.
Yeah, real is hard indeed. Somebody asked about electronic warfare aircraft, prowlers. Intruder, yeah, I'd love to see the Intruder. There are rumours about Intruders. But Prowler, Growler, Raven, when we get electronic warfare sorted out, which is number 7,462 to do on a list of 19 million things, when we get a proper electronic warfare model, they will be all over that, including, you know, compass call and all that kind of thing. When you get the full modern kill chain, air picture support, you know, electronic support measure stuff, yes. But I would say that's about 5 years off.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because when people, I'm starting to recognise one of the things it's interesting to me about the community that DCS forms as well. I think there are some people there that one of the questions here was a very interesting one. I don't think it was a statement about training airplanes and saying this one here. What his question was: why the trainer planes are to pay for? No beginner ever buys a trainer. The trainers are there for a reason. I must admit, I wouldn't leap around jumping into F-18s or anything until you've I mean, I started right. So I've got these are down here. These are things called logbooks, by the way. Simon's got them as well. But you're just behind the seat on the rowing machine. They're not a guillotine, but it's a rowing machine. There's about 2,500 hours of actual jet flying in there, and yet I still came to this game and started off on an F5 for a reason, by the way. Yeah. You know what I mean? So for a reason, I taught on this airplane here. This is a Hawk T2. Probably the most advanced trainer. Well, at the time when it came in, it was. And I was the chief instructor. I was OC standard on this airplane. I came to DCS humbled because I don't know how to fly an F5, and I read and I learned about the F5. There's some great guides out there. Someone said Tactical DCS do some great videos. You mentioned the guys as well, haven't you? Cap and all those kind of guys that do some great videos for Grim Reapers. Chuck's guides. There's stuff out there, but you do have to look at it.
Very good too.
You've got to put some. You've got to sit down there and just read things about. Just read the Chuck's guide and how to start the jet up and everything. You learn so much about how to start the airplane, what the airplane's about, whether the hydraulics are connected. On the F5, you can use one engine to drive the other engine as you taxi out with high power setting. All these kind of things are. And then actual F5 pilots will be online somewhere and will say, "Oh, back in the day when I flew F5, we did this." It's really interesting how the community comes together. I don't think trainers are necessary. Let's have a look. But it's nice that people can emulate the training pipeline if they want to. Yeah, if you want to be stuck in Royal Air Force flying training for 7 years, DCS is the place to come. I did invite the Air Force to watch this, so they're going to just have a go at me again. That's all.
Yeah, Kev asking about issues on maps. Yeah, I'll tell you what, Kev Moffat at 8 o'clock. He says, "Do we recognise issues? Wrong aerodrome layouts for time frame channel map, and will these be corrected?" The answer to that is the answer is yeah, we do. My biggest bugbear on the Caucasus is that it's got loads of old Russian kit lying about on it because it's it's set in, within kind of 5-10 year time frame. Now, until we have the whole world map, and that is a plan, by the way, until we have a whole world mapping system, unfortunately, we're going to have to just unprogram those things off, the static objects and other errors. And yeah, we're aware of them. There's endless discussions, for example, do we do Manston 1940? Do we do Manston 1943? Do we do Manston 1945? Do we do Manston 1982? Do we do it 2015? So there's a recognition as well that on maps, that infrastructure changes through time. So for every map, we're going to have to do it now with different timestamps. Just one of those things because, it's just the way it is.
Right. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I think we should probably let this go. One of the comments I can't find, unfortunately, there are some people saying, "How do I donate?" Super Chat's pretty good for that, guys. If you want to donate, we all appreciate it because it means we can do more of these, isn't it? Really, and I can actually hopefully take some time tomorrow to get this 10v1 video out, which is going to be quite amusing, and put some music on it because it all takes time. And also I'm trying to make this campaign. The Aerialist module, very interesting. Aerialist is an aircraft that it's not spelled like that, but it doesn't matter. It's all capitalized, by the way. Aerialist one of the things we're trying to do is make use of low cost, agile training like DCS for the Aerialist project. And as head of training, I've got Simon's number on my phone here, and this is something that we have spoken about before. Something that I'd really like to see within the Royal Air Force, by the way, especially at the school here, is a room with maybe 10 of these systems in where the students can go and play. Because when you play, you learn. So if you're sitting on an F-15, because this guy I flew with today, it was obvious to me that if I had maybe an hour with him, maybe 2 hours, I'd sort out his slow speed game. I would sort out his flat scissors and his rolling scissors in about 2 hours on VR headsets. I could do that for him. I don't really necessarily have 2 hours, and he's a 737 pilot, so let's not get him too good at rolling scissors, to be honest with you. But yes, Aerialists hopefully will definitely build into some DCS.
I think ask anybody who's been to a Montessori school or sent their children to a Montessori school. Children come out, all they do is play, and they, and you look at any model of education, the Swedes, where they just they dick about until about 7 or 8, and the Germans start late, 6, and they all end up allegedly way ahead of our children. So
yeah, they do. I've heard that about Germans, and of course they don't take tests. There's no pressure. They go outside and they play in the trees and stuff, don't they? And run around and all sorts of things. And
learning by playing is phenomenal. And you don't have to have a high fidelity or exact representation of the thing it is you're doing. You just need to understand. The big question is, what is it that we're actually trying to teach here? And then go to the what do we need to teach that with? You don't necessarily need to do it, with something that is super high fidelity and an exact replica of what you're going to be going on to.
I wouldn't even recommend that the Air Force went and tried to build themselves a Hawk T2. Wouldn't be interested in that whatsoever. They've got a Hawk T, got 28 Hawk T2 sat on the line. They've got them outside for real. I would say, right, let's go F5, F18, and probably just a some couple of warbirds to play with. And what would happen, and I guarantee this would happen, you'd get instructors, all the instructors and students in the same room on 4 and 25 here. So they're all going to have tea together, and you get some instructor sidle up to some student sidle up to instructor. Hello, sir. I wonder if you can talk about my rolling scissors downstairs. Yeah, sure we can. Let's go. And they put a headset on, drinking tea, obviously like legends that they are. Not the instructor's got much time, of course. And they would go and just flush it out to get, because it's all about picture recognition. And it's really hard. I'll tell you what, I believe it's the Swedes, or it might be the Finnish that do this. Before they go and do air combat, they actually do it at half speed in the simulator. So everything is half speed. All the brake turns are half speed. All the entries to the rolling scissors are half speed. All the reversals for the slows, half speed. Then they do it at 3/4 speeds. Then they do it at full speed in the sim before they even get in the airplane, because you don't want to waste 10 grand's worth of fuel by a student messing up there. It's hard. You know, picture recognition in air combat is hard. I know men and women that have not made it onto out of flying training on the BFM phase, and instructors, by the way, that have struggled massively to learn some of the pictures in BFM, because you're doing it real time in the jet whilst your helmet's on you, whilst you're stressing out the back. It's a bit of a nightmare. So doing it like you're talking about in VR, and you can even then get the ACMI from TacView and sit there and go, let's have a look at your speed entry. Let's look at top. You know how these things work. And it's just such a, I don't want to say low cost. I want to say, what's the word I want to use here, Simon? Is it affordable, and agile, and disruptive? How do you describe it?
It's all of those things. It is affordable. I mean, it's easily affordable. It's peanuts in comparison. You know, when you're looking at 5 grand for a rig and all the modules, you know, and you sit on a squadron and it then costs you nothing for 2 years. And you look at just the German Luftwaffe experience is just look at that training experience, and in the French, the entire French Mirage wing using it all the time. They're so sold on it, and of course, the connecting up with other systems. I don't know where to begin. To me, it is so obvious that it is useful. It is so obvious that it is real, because especially in VR, it is real. And the other thing we've got coming, of course, is the haptic gloves, but also the hand tracking, so that in VR, you're just pressing buttons. Although with just the hand tracking, you're not feeling obviously anything. With the haptic gloves, you are feeling the press. So all that is coming, and that whole immersion, whilst teaching something, and it's you're going to pay for a 4-ship to have the top end computers that will be good enough for a couple of years. You're paying 20 grand, and the DCS is virtually free compared to your hardware. And then you can, so that's 2 hours flying, and you're going to see, I don't know how many students through that, how many hours and hours and hours. And after, once they've finished once they finish flying your F5, your F18, they'll be fighting, especially instructors, they'll be fighting to do 109 versus Spitfire.
Well, they will. Someone who said, ask a Tiger about play. You're absolutely right. And this is the thing. And what you get is students, they wouldn't live on it. They go down there. And it's also used as a decompression tool, wouldn't they? I mean, you decompress, and they go and they learn about BVR is quite a complicated subject as well. Beyond visual range combat is quite a complicated subject. And I think you were saying that the guys that use DCS was it the Germans or something are using it?
Yeah, they're about they don't need the whiteboard, generally speaking. They're about 2 to 3 months ahead of the guys who get as far as a Eurofighter OCU and have not used DCS, and they're going, well, where did you guys you guys are all so good? And the instructors are going, and now it's expected. They're now all expected to have DCS privately and all fly it.
Well, I'll tell you the truth, though. The problem the service has got, when I say that, I'm talking about the Royal Air Force, is we have this issue, unfortunately. Well, I'm not in the service anymore. I left 2 years ago. But we did have this issue in the service where when I was OC Standards, we had a couple of issues with instructors. Unfortunately, they didn't want students watching their flight tapes. And I said, no, students are here to learn. We'll be on squadrons with students ourselves in the future. So all flight tapes are unlocked. Students can watch instructors' flight tapes. And instructors were like, come back, put their hand up and say, I made a mistake, guys. Come watch my tape. Massive honesty, massive authenticity in the squadron. And that was hugely authentic. And we know the best thing about flying and flight safety is to do it that way. But also what I think the service has a problem with at the moment is it has to monitor what it teaches to its students. And in effect, you'd have students teaching students. Now, I like students teaching students. That the student above them has done the course already or done the BFM, comes back and teaches a student. It happens anyway. We know it goes on. So for me, it wouldn't be a concern to put students down there in a room and just say, guys, crack on with some BFM. Come and have a look. An instructor will sit you for the first one. We'll talk about picture recognition. They're probably doing it at the same time anyway. Get in there and go and play with it. We don't even know what they're doing in the rooms back in the mess. That's what I mean. At least it's on the squadron, and at least the instructors there can help them in a very, very inexpensive way.
Can I just say also? I mean, the best way to, for those of you frustrated with DCS, the best way to learn DCS is flying with somebody else. And when you look at the training service and the Hoggets and the Reapers and others who have training service, they're just fantastic. Where you can go and fly in a safe environment, where there's safe spaces, where you won't get shot down every 10 seconds because you're a noob. Because I've seen it in other games. I've seen it where you go into the game and you're toast after 2 minutes, and you're all right then. Enough of this. So there are some fantastic safe spaces, and lots of people who, with wonderful didactic method, like Tim, obviously, who are just want to share their knowledge with you and their skill set with you, and it's for them, it's very, very satisfying. And obviously, I've taught a few people in my time. To watch people, go from being complete idiots to being actually not bad is it's just an amazing experience. It's very, very fulfilling.
There was one here actually about the BFM. For those in DCS, the BFM ACM clinic. Oh, okay, fair enough. It's good. Whenever I TAC view as well is good. Yeah, thanks. Whenever I just go and start up these jets, I normally sit in a server, like a Grim Reaper server, and I can see in the chat, like, people are going, "Oh, is that fast jet performance?" And I ignore it because I know what's going to happen. They're going to go, "Let's go and have a fight," and I'm like, "I'm learning the nav kit." You know what I mean? Stay away from my airplane. I'm heads in trying to scroll the radar. I'm mapping stuff. You know what I mean? Mapping my Warthog. So I do get a lot of that. It's like, go look, we better leave this right now. The comment I was talking about was someone saying that my beard was mandem, and yes, I think I am. I was on a podcast with a guy called Chris Dangerfield who used that term. I've never even looked up what it means, but I think it's a good term anyway.
Are you showing up going for a reset for Movember?
What's that?
November. Well, you got a moustache and beard. You do a reset in November.
Oh, I don't know.
30 days.
I think it upsets the Air Force quite a lot, so I want to keep it. Because I can fly. I'm flying with a beard, aren't I? Technically, flying with a beard. I'm just flying your sim with a beard.
Yeah, but maybe at heart, though. We all know this.
Yeah, well, no, the Navy, they made the Navy, anyone in a 1 group aircraft or a 22 group aircraft that relies on an oxygen system, either to be used routinely or in case of emergency, to shave. So unfortunately, what Mike Wigston did, Mike Wigston's Chief of Air Staff, he came in and he is revolutionising things. Mike was my boss on this aircraft, by the way. Me and Mike were like this, you know what I mean? But I do have, I've got his email actually, because I write to him about airless. But he was on this, and he was a great boss. Don't get me wrong. He just threw himself in the bush like the rest of us, and impaled himself on twigs when he's out in Cyprus and all. No more stories about that. But either way, he's redone hair regs now, isn't he? So you can have longer hair, braided hair. If I was in now, I'd have braids like this. Cultural misappropriation, all that kind of stuff. And he's done the beard thing. But as soon as you said you could have beards, people went and grew them, and then I think it's AOC1 group said no, you can't have them in Typhoon. And then everyone had to shave them off, including the Navy. So the Navy are like, thank you, Chief of Air Staff. Now we can't have beards. Brilliant. So he's the most senior service beard fast jet. Yeah, naval aviator. Unfortunately, as I said, if you boys are flying in Royal Air Force aircraft, you cannot have a beard. Nine Schneeber. Right, what we're going to do then, guys, we're going to say a big thank you to Simon for coming on. Simon, I'm sure you will come on again. I'm sure I'm going to see you on a service soon, because we always kind of meet on the same place anyway. Yeah, so let's give it a few months and everything, and then come on again and explain to us how you're making DCS better. Someone said that when there's some evil people in the world. It's like, when I strafe infantry, I'd like them to sort of die or something. You know what I mean? They all sort of stand there. I'm like, okay, all right, it's a family show. You know what I mean? Fair enough. Simon, I'm going
to say, you should see the internal discussion we're having on cows.
Cows.
Yes. How should cows die?
How should cows die? But they should. They should die. All cows must die. That's another thing. I'm making a load of merch up, so I'm coming up with all these quotes that I've got already. So one of them now is going to be "Cows must die." There we go. You've added it into it. You can have a cap FJP. Cows will die. Brilliant. Look, I'm going to drop you out this convo, okay? And then I'm going to play the outro. And what do we say about Warrior Wednesday? It's not. It's actually Thursday. We're going to have a bit of a message about that, okay? Because we're a big positive crowd here, guys. All right, and we're going to make sure we're not going to lose our jobs. We're going to provide for our family. We're going to talk about that for a little bit. But I will come and speak to you again in the waiting room once I run the outro. If that's all right, Simon.
Yep.
Okay. I'll see you in a minute. I'm going to take Simon out. Take him out. Yeah, he's gone. And I'll take his name out as well, because it's not me, is it? It's not me. It's not. This is me here. Boom. This is me, Tim Davies, Fast Jet Performance. Look, guys, that was a fantastic chat. Aru, thank you for the comments, guys. I really appreciate it, and for supporting the a few crawling wounded infantry crawling to finish. Often looks at, we need crawling infantry. We do. That's obviously what is missing from this flight sim. That would be great, wouldn't it? And dead cows, obviously. Look, guys, normally on Warrior Wednesday, we do talk about Thursday, we do talk about Friday. Why do we talk about that? Because effort at the end of the week needs to be driven into the workplace, because we need our bosses to know that we are driving some tangible change within there, and we want to be there. We don't lose our jobs, okay? A lot of job loss going on right now. Think about how many suicides there have been, okay? We are men, all right? Make sure you're helping the family out. You're standing up for your family also. Some of us are women also, but what I'm saying is we need to be there for each other at this difficult period that we are facing at the moment, okay? That's what FJP is all about. Right, so we've got Friday. We haven't got Thursday because obviously I kind of messed the times up because I had to do something last night and it was planned previously and I had to go somewhere to do it. I couldn't do it on Wednesday. You've got Friday. If you are in work or you are on some of these team chats or anything like that, which I hate, by the way, but we are all on them, Zoom, Teams, that kind of stuff. Make sure, obviously, you all know this, guys, dress well for them, be there, contribute, and be that person that they don't want to get rid of, because when this furlough and everything else ends, there's going to be job losses. You know it's going to happen, all right? Make sure you keep your fitness up, diet as well. If you want to come into Patreon, then obviously join at the basic or the advanced. Basic webinars, advanced, you get versus me 101, and we can do it flying if you want to. You know what I mean? I'll do that with you. If you want to join the advanced and come flying with me in DCS, that's all good. We can do that. You can film it, shoot me down, all that. Don't mind, okay? Guys, look, I really appreciate it. We're going to do the outro, aren't we? We're going to do the outro. So let's get dancing, fam. All right, we need that. So I'm going to do one thing now. We are going to remove that, move that. We've done that. We're going to go to the outro, okay? So little guy, little jet, going to get yourself dancing, all right? You know how it works. Until next time, guys, let me get rid of the banner at the bottom of Patreon. I'm going to be dancing here. I want to see you dancing too. Tim Davies, Fast Ship Performance.